So welcome everyone to our AMA event with Techstars. My name is Angelique Williams. I'm the Senior Program Manager at StartOut. StartOut is a national nonprofit that supports LGBT entrepreneurs. We were founded in 2009, primarily as an events company because at the time there was no professional space for LGBT entrepreneurs and people in tech to get together. We now have a worldwide member base of about 17,000 members. Most of that is in the US, but about 5% is sprinkled around the rest of the world. Excuse me. In terms of what we do for our founders now, again, we started as an events company, so that is still part of our organization. We have 6 chapter cities throughout the US, and we have about 80 events a year. Typically, those are in person in those said chapter cities, but of course, because of COVID, everything is virtual. So we actually are still putting on the same amount of events, except they're all digital, so you can join anywhere, which is nice because I've never personally been able to go to any of the New York or the Austin or Chicago events, and now I can, so that's really nice. In addition to that, we have an internal network, which is kind of like a LinkedIn for entrepreneurs, investors, service providers, community members. We have a forum, and again, that's a private network. That's where people can post resources, ask questions, get advice. That's on the community level, so that's available to everyone. On our founder level, we have 3 different types of support. We have office experts, where you can book time at your leisure with experts that can help with entrepreneurship in general, marketing, public relations, and storytelling, and fundraising, of course, because that's on the tip of everyone's tongue when it comes to startups. We have a mentorship program where we match you with either an experienced entrepreneur or a professional to help you in the areas that you are looking for support in. And that's a 6-month commitment where you meet once every other week for an hour, so 12 meetings in total. And again, you can get a new mentor, you can take a break, things like that. We also have an investor portal. We have about 230 accredited investors. That's anywhere between venture capital firms as well as angel investors. It's about 60-40. And so we showcase all of our fundraising founders to those investors. And if they want an introduction, we make those set introductions for those founders. And our final level of support is our growth lab. It's a biannual accelerator where we accept 5 companies. And again, in a pre-COVID time, if you weren't in San Francisco, you'd move to San Francisco for 6 months. You have free office space for those 6 months. You work with the cohort, you work with our experts and Chris Davidson, who's the head of our growth lab, to help push your company forward. And that culminates in a demo day. We just finished selecting our group for cohort 7, and that's going to be the first start to finish virtual accelerator we've had. Cohort 6 had 10 days of in-person, and then the rest was all virtual. And so that is what we do. We are here to support. We support on all levels, from ideation to about Series B fundraisers. For our growth lab, it's definitely founders that have an idea in the market, are working on it full time, and are looking to scale their business. With that, I will hand it off to Claudius and Isaac to take over the AMA.
Okay. Thanks for hosting us, Angelique. Claudius, do you want to go first?
Yeah, certainly. I think let's kind of let everybody know what we're going to do and then dive into intro. So I guess we'll do some intros, and then Isaac and I will kind of just have a quick discussion with some questions that we have prepared. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A for those on the chat here. Myself, hi guys, my name is Claudius Mbemba. I am co-founder and CTO at New. New is a managed marketplace connecting vacation rental owners to local cleaners who can clean before the next guest checks in. We are a Seattle-based startup. We've been in market roughly 2.5 years, and just completed the Techstars Seattle program, accelerator program, and we're just in the phase of expanding from the Seattle market to a new geo after having closed our seed round. And prior to that, I was a software engineer at Microsoft, and really excited to be on this chat and kind of get to tell you guys about my experience and share some laughs with Isaac.
Awesome. Thanks. I'm Isaac Kato. I'm the managing director for Techstars Seattle. Techstars globally is one of the largest accelerator networks in the world. We have 47 programs across the globe. I run the Seattle program along with my colleague, Chena or Q Titcomb, and we're the third oldest accelerator in the Techstars network. We're entering our 12th year, so we've had 110 companies come through the program. When I think about, if you don't know Techstars well, the ultimate value prop that we offer to founders is we dramatically increase your odds of success. So if you think about the fact that most technology startups fail eventually, most Techstars graduates succeed. And within Seattle specifically, of the 110 companies that have gone through over the last 11 years, roughly 75% are still in business or have exited. And so the success that we offer, that we help sort of to drive, comes from a lot of different factors, but they include very specific tailored mentorship. So we really have a very broad and deep mentor network within the Seattle ecosystem of people who are industry experts, functional experts, or serially successful entrepreneurs. We have an amazing network. When you join Techstars, you get access to a global network of 5,000 alums, a couple thousand investors, a bunch of corporate partners, prospective employees, prospective customers. And then there's a ton of education and a ton of peer support, frankly, as well. And so we were really fortunate to have Claudius and his co-founder, Kwame, agree to join us in the last cohort. And in particular, I thought it was great that you actually probably had the most traction of any company that came into the program, got absolutely flattened by COVID, did all the right things in terms of making tough decisions, preserving your runway, and came out fighting and closed the seed round, pre-seed round, which was just like great. So this is so normally when I do these kinds of things, at least I just sort of talk about Techstars, but we thought it would be fun actually to have a little founder MD riffing about what we do. So I should say quickly my background. I'm a serial entrepreneur myself. I've started 2 companies. I've run 3 at the C-level. So my first company was a 3D graphics software company that I sold to. We sold to a public CAD software company. My second company was a data center business in Iceland that I co-founded and ran for 10 years as a CFO, and I raised a couple $100 million for that business. It's now a big, growing, profitable data center business. And then my third company, I was hired as president of a Seattle-based company called Mighty AI, which was a machine learning business that got acquired by Uber. And in addition to that, I was a VC for about 10 years. I've done a bunch of angel investing, so I have a lot of experience both as a founder as well as an investor in terms of the fundraising process. And I took on the MD role in Seattle last year. So I've been through one cycle. I'm a one-tour wonder, but hopefully I was able to help you, Claudius, and a couple of your classmates. But all right, so what we're going to do, I think, is just kind of ask each other questions, and then take, is that right? And then take audience questions. So I don't know, you want to go first? You want to flip a coin? I'm not going to arm wrestle you because you'll crush me.
No, I figured we kind of go down the line. So if you guys don't know, and you'll get to learn about Isaac in this call, is a man of a lot of different focuses. And I know one of them is diversity. Diversity is a big focus for Techstars Seattle, especially this year. And can you talk a little bit more about how you guys approach that? What's your thesis on diversity, and how you work to introduce diversity into the Techstars class?
Yeah. Okay. Let's jump into the deep end of the pool. So hey, I should say, first of all, diversity is a key priority for Techstars globally, not just our program in Seattle. And Techstars is committed to bringing diverse founders into the program. And we made the 1,000 diverse founders pledge. So that's a significant portion. When you think that over the last 13 years, there've been 5,000 total founders. We're now committing to get to 1,000 in the next couple of years. It's a major push. And I know that the vast majority of MDs out there spend a lot of time when they're building their classes thinking about it. Within Seattle, it is also a critical priority of the program teams there. And I guess the first question is why. Okay, so First of all, I just think it's the right thing to do. Regardless, I believe that our society and our world is better if we have companies who come through Techstars Seattle who are more representative of the population at large, and that's generally not been the case in the technology space and even within Techstars Seattle. But I also think that there's increasing evidence that diverse founding teams actually do better in the long run. And your class is a case in point. When you look at the first 3 companies out of the 10 to raise capital, 2 of the 3 were diverse founding teams. So I think that actually says a lot. So anyway, it's a priority for us. Last year, I think we were okay on the diversity front, but not great. And one of the reasons why we were only okay is, as much as we wanted to have a diverse class, I was new on the job, and I went about sourcing and recruiting for the last class in the way that I think most VCs would typically do it, or most institutional investors would do it. We go to all of our friends and we say, hey, we're looking for referrals. If you know any great founders, I'd love to talk to them. And then we go to Crunchbase or AngelList or PitchBook and look for companies. Or we go to technology events and say, hi, we're Techstars. We'd love to have you join our class, okay? Well, what I found, from direct experiences, there's no possible way we're going to build a suitably and adequately diverse class by going through those traditional conventional channels. We just don't meet enough diverse founders by doing that. We want the best founders, but we still have to talk to a lot of people to get there. And so this year, for starters, Q and I sat down and said, okay, what's our diversity targets going to be? Let's be really objective and clear about that, and let's be really open about it and transparent about it. So we set targets, because if you don't set targets, you're never going to get there. And we said, KPIs, as you know, we're big on KPIs at Techstars. So we said our KPI around diversity is we want to have 4 of the 10 founders for the class of 2021, or I should say at least 4, be women or non-binary founders. Okay, so and then we want at least 4 of the 10, these are CEOs, not just founders, but at least 4 of the 10 CEOs come from underrepresented or underestimated minorities. And so once we set those targets, then it's easier to say, okay, well, how are we going to do that? We know the traditional way doesn't work. So this year we set out to do a ton of direct outreach to diverse founders. And that includes doing a lot of conversations like this with diverse founding organizations and ecosystems like StartOut and like a bunch of others. And I think we've already reached out to, I want to say, at least 20 organizations. And this is probably like our 7th or 8th conversation like this in this recruiting season. So by the way, we are taking applications through October 11th, I should say. So if you're interested, get in touch. We're easily found. I'll put my email address in here, but just say, hey, I'd like to talk to you about your program and have some office hours, and you will get that. We committed, one thing we did is we committed to talk to every diverse founder who asked for office hours. Plain and simple, 100%. That's another, that's another KPI. We will talk to every diverse founder who asks for office hours. So, did that answer your question, Claudius? That was a lot of words.
It does. And I was going to say, if for anyone who's an entrepreneur who notices there, Isaac did something very sly. He put a CTA out, call to action. Definitely hit him up. Make sure you follow through on that, because they're really amazing about doing that. And I wanted to just quickly comment. I really do appreciate, from a diverse founder standpoint, the approach that you and Q have taken. I know Q is a huge motivating factor in terms of along with you as well, to push for diversity, especially in the Seattle class. So I really appreciate the methodological and very pointed approach to really making sure you get founders who are diverse, who don't look like the typical Silicon Valley CEO or a founding team into the class, to be able to get those experiences. Because I believe wholeheartedly that investing in that is a really good bet for the future. So really want to say again, thank you guys for really making that a focus and really going about it the right way, not just making empty promises, but actually backing that up with action and really process to get there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, we're not there yet. We set targets for this year. Our pipeline looks like, fundamentally different and better this year on the diversity angle than it did last year. So I'm hopeful that we get to our target. It will be a multi-year effort, but I expect that we will get there. Okay, so now do I get to ask you a question, or are you
Yeah,
gonna? Are you,
yeah, we can piggyback. Your turn.
okay. So well, I'm gonna. Do I have to
You can
exactly?
jump. No,
I'm
you
gonna
can
ask.
jump.
I'm gonna move around. I'm gonna throw you
Yeah,
some curveballs. Okay. My
for
first
sure.
question is actually like, why did you even apply to Techstars, and what were you
Hmm.
hoping to get out of it?
Well, I mean, you're part of this process, so I'll tell the story. New had back in 2018 had applied both to Techstars and Y Combinator, made it to roughly the final rounds of both, and got rejected both times. And so coming into 2019, we knew we were still interested in partaking in accelerator. We'd heard there'd be a lot of benefits. I think the real value for us is New had been, from our standpoint, an investable company from its inception. We were making revenues from day one. We had actual customers paying us. We had a service in market, and yet we could not, for the life of us, when we went out to talk to investors, get a round closed. So our goal was, with any accelerator that we went into, was to go facilitate a fundraise after coming out of the accelerator. That was our ultimate goal. And we largely chose Techstars due to our interactions with you. Again, coming into 2019, we applied for both Techstars, and well, we were thinking about applying for YC. We applied to Techstars largely off of the discussions with Isaac, and having met him in person, understanding his kind of thesis and his worldview, really the value and seeing the value in our business around having both a physical component in the real world and a SaaS component in the digital world. He saw a lot of value in that, and so ultimately, that was one of the big pushes, our interactions and just the great vibes we felt coming from you. The other component was, because we had a business already existing in market, and YC is a program where you likely will have to relocate to the Bay for 3 months and operate out of there. We were hesitant to have to do that. We know we could have made the travel, because Seattle to the Bay is actually really close. But given the option of being in Seattle and being part of an accelerator that's already here, having our business operate here, and being able to have a watchful eye on our business made more sense. And so in the end, we end up applying for Techstars only, because we, one, really felt that the management team was aligned with some of our, where they saw our business going. And then two, we had an existing business already in market that we needed to really be accountable for. And we weren't able to just up and move for 3 months without being able to come back and really watch the business to make sure that things are going as smoothly as we wanted. So those were the two motivating factors. But again, number one was really the interactions with you and the team, and really feeling that you guys had our best interests at heart, and understanding that Techstars had a worldview that was similar to ours.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, first of all, Claudius, as you know, we're really appreciative and honored that you did choose to come with us, and so far it's working pretty well. So I'm glad for that. But one thing I've seen, I think that actually particularly us versus YC, it's often a very self-selecting kind of thing. First of all, there's certain kind of cultural aspects that we look for in founders, and one of them is a sense of humility, and one is a notion of give first. So one of the core values at Techstars is give first, which means we try to help each other without any expectation of any kind of immediate return on that. And you got to remember, when I'm building a class, I'm not just picking 10 individual companies, but I'm putting together a bit of a social fabric of founders who are going to become peers and who are going to work very closely with each other. I think what a lot of people find that they don't necessarily expect is you actually get a ton of learning and support out of your peers. And so we're looking for people who do have that desire to learn, and who also are going to be, great teammates for your other cohort mates. And I feel like your class, so that certainly played out in spades. Like, I think everybody really enjoyed each other's company, really helped each other out. I think some of the other accelerators are a little more hands-off, maybe a little more Machiavellian too. I mean, we take 10 and only 10 companies per program per year. And as opposed to saying, hey, if you're in the top quartile, you're going to do really, really well. Everybody else kind of drifts off. Here, we want as many of you as possible to succeed, and we're going to work really hard on all 10 of your behalves. So that's one thing I'd say about that.
Along those lines, you've already started down, so I'd love for you to just answer this question. But what kind of founders do you think benefit most from Techstars?
Yeah, good question. I mean, again, I'd say first and foremost, it's a mindset thing. If you're a founder who believes that you have something to learn, you'll do really well at Techstars. Okay. And by the way, we have plenty of serial founders. Most people are first-time founders, to be clear, but we have plenty of serial founders who still recognize, and again, they have that humility to say, well, I know a lot and I did really well in my last company, but I still have a lot to learn. And so, for example, one of your peer companies sold the team there sold their last company to Microsoft for a pretty penny, but the CEO still said, hey, we did really well, but I feel like I don't know that much about fundraising. And so I want to kind of learn how to be a great fundraiser. And we love that. So first and foremost, it's a mindset that you want to learn. And I really, by the way, that's something that I really look for. Like if someone shows up and says, oh, I've got this totally dialed in, I just want like a mouthpiece for fundraising and the visibility, I'd be like, oh, this might not be the right place for you. Short of that, I mean, look, we want companies that have something to accelerate. So there is potentially too early for Techstars. Like if you're still figuring out like what problem are you trying to solve and what's the general approach you're going to take, I might say wait a little while. So one thing about Techstars is you can apply every 2 months to a new cycle, okay? And you get to pick two companies, you first and second choice. And this year, because at least for the balance of this year, every program is going to be run remotely, you actually have no geographic constraints. And as you know, we were able to run your program remotely, and I think we did pretty well even after we went to life in Zoom. So you can apply.
And I want to touch on that during this.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But you can apply. You should apply early and apply often. And one thing I'll say is, I've heard founders say, "Oh, I applied to Techstars and I didn't get in, so I just kind of gave up." I'm like, no, it's like do the 180-degree opposite. Apply early. If you don't get in, apply again, and then apply again. And you guys got in on your third try because you set a baseline. You made progress. You made even more progress. And it's like, okay, this is ridiculous. This company's doing great. Come on in. Because a lot of times, like it is a competitive process. We won't like traction and progress answers a lot of questions. And we always say investors invest in lines, not dots.
Not dots.
And you drew a really nice line, so it was easy.
Yeah, that was my number one feedback to people thinking about accelerators. It is never, very rarely, like 0.01% a one and done. You likely will apply 2 to 3 times before you actually get in. And in that time, you do have to build that traction. I feel some people who unfortunately give up after the first try aren't really gonna have a great long successful career in entrepreneurship, because it is gonna be tough. If you're giving up after that first try of getting rejected, like wait till you fundraise. That is literally walls of rejection every day. So it's definitely a mindset, and it's definitely a component. I think it helps weed out some people who may not really be in it for the right reasons in the long term. And so my general feedback again to everyone who is thinking about doing an accelerator is expect that you're going to take multiple stabs at it, and do not expect to get in on the first try, unless you've been a serial founder before and you have a lot of clout. It's usually where you can maybe and you have, that's usually when you can get in again.
Yeah, no, I mean, and look, resiliency is one of the most important aspects of successful entrepreneurship. You are going to go through many, 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 many hard times, and it's certainly a factor that we look for in founders. It's also, by the way, my hypothesis is one of the reasons why I think diverse founding teams do well is because a lot of times they are founders who had to go through some degree of adversity just to get to the starting line. And if you made it that far, well, there's a pretty good chance you're gonna keep on pushing through. By the way, I also love people who have been elite athletes like yourself, because you had to be focused, you had to work really, really hard to get far and go through quite a bit of suffering, right?
Yeah.
So
I think that's a really good summary. I want to change course because you've already started touching on it, and kind of going on to everyone's favorite topic of the year, it's COVID. You touched a little bit on how COVID is affecting the program going into 2021. So I'd love for you to kind of dive really deeper into that. You mentioned it's going to be all virtual. What are kind of the thinking around how do you really build that sense of community in a virtual environment, and how are you guys kind of approaching going virtual with 2021's class?
Yeah, it's another tough question. Thank you. So it's probably the number one thing that I am working on and worried about is how do we get that sense of community and bonding among the founders if we are fully remote. I should say it's not 100% that Seattle will be all remote. I mean, there's a chance to come
A hybrid.
We started in late January that we might have a hybrid, but at this point, my guarantee is we will run remote optional. So we're late enough in the game that I have to be able to say, if you either can't or choose not to come, we will run the full program remotely. One of the things that we'll almost certainly do this year is kind of start the program earlier in terms of forming those interactions. So we're gonna promote a lot of one-on-one interactions among the founders even before we start. And we'll, one of the things if we are remote that you won't get is those bumping into each other in the break room, getting a snack, or in the having in the meal before founders talk. So we're going to have to make sure that we set those up, and we're going to make sure that everybody does a lot of sort of laying out their backgrounds, probably with some writing, and it gets shared. And then there are a whole bunch of emerging platforms like icebreakers that I think are really good for getting people to know each other. And you're going to go for virtual walks before you ever show up to programs. So, and we'll do a lot more sort of, whereas, last time I didn't have to do as much like, what are you looking for to, from the program? We'll have people publishing that kind of stuff. And then, I don't know if we'll do virtual werewolf or what other games we'll do, but if there's not some laughter involved, well, we're going to make sure there's laughter involved. So those are some of the things. But I'm not saying that I love the fact that we're all virtual. I think it does create some interesting opportunities, but we're going to do as much as we can to help people form those bonds before and during the program, and then after too.
One suggestion is virtual karaoke. I know you're a big fan of that, so make sure you get that going, because I think the class.
All right, well, you found the platform that works, because I haven't seen it yet.
No, I thought. I mean, we could discuss this after. We want to dive more into this, but we'll find something. We'll make something work.
We try. Look, the program is incredibly intense, as you know, Claudius. But we also try to make sure that it's also fun, and that it provides the kind of emotional support that is like so vital if you're starting a company. Yeah,
it can be very lonely. All right, you're gonna ask me about COVID?
I'm gonna actually no. I'm tired of talking about COVID. Like COVID is I want to know what you learned. What were some of the things you learned in the program, and I guess related to that, what are some of the habits that you built up during the program that you might not have had before?
Yeah, so for us, one of the biggest values of being in the program was really having that community around us. Having that, there is something to say about having cohort of startups literally inches away on different desks working on their ideas, and you kind of see that momentum. New had, as I mentioned, and Isaac kind of alluded to, we had a lot of traction coming into Techstars. We were a little bit more established, but that meant we had kind of strayed away from the typical startup ways of being agile and very experimental. We were kind of more, we were treating the business as a little bit more established than it should have been. And so coming into Techstars, one thing that I got a lot of value from was just having that, again, that community of like-minded entrepreneurs actively hustling on their business. It pushed us to get back to the startup mentality of lean startup and experimenting and really kind of tracking our metrics and really pushing for growth. So one of the things that, again, I learned from the program, which again, I feel like I knew, but it took the program and the environment to really kind of bring that out of us, was to get back to experimenting. That is something we'd strayed away from in our business. And it is something, I guess I'll answer this in two parts. It's something we continue to do to this day because of the Techstars experience, because of the time spent, again, in this environment of really hustling and grinding on a daily basis, again, with others who are doing the same thing around you, and you're seeing their progress, they're motivating you to push, and you're making progress and you're motivating them. One thing Techstars does a great job of is having weekly kind of sync sessions where weekly stand-ups, more or less. We did KPIs, highs and lows, and in that time you really got a chance to see the progress that the other companies have been making, and kind of judge yourself on not judge yourself good or bad, but really kind of gauge where your business is going in relation to the other companies around you. Obviously it's a very friendly, competitive environment, but it allows you to really push yourself. And that's something we were able to get back to during Techstars and have continued to this day because of the Techstars experience.
Yeah, there's a little bit of healthy peer pressure there, isn't there? And there's also something about really driving accountability onto yourself when you put out very publicly, here are our targets in the very near term, like, this week, these are our targets. And did we hit them? And then talking very honestly, having the intellectual honesty to say, well, either we crushed it, or, well, we didn't hit it. And here's the reason why. And, and let's figure out how we don't make that mistake again. Because look, you make tons of mistakes anytime you're doing a startup, but the question is, are you learning and avoiding them in the future, and not, and moving faster as you go? So that's one of the aspects I love about the program.
And really quickly too, the great part about the program is that, not especially the KPIs, it's not, Techstars pushes for you to really kind of define not what are called vanity KPIs. You don't want to be focused on vanity metrics. You want to focus on actual things that are moving the needle in your business growth. And so having that kind of, again, the accountability to see that you're actually developing KPIs and indicators that are going to be moving the needle on your business is strong and is huge. And then also having, again, that community, that friendly competition for people making progress. And then I also love that whether you hit it or not is not the goal, is not the objective. The objective is to define what those needles are. And Techstars doesn't, like, you're not held accountable to hitting KPIs every single week. You're allowed to miss a little bit. And if you do, you just have to understand why you did miss. And that's really great for really building. It's again, it's not a sense of you have to, you're being kind of like, I don't want to say like slave driven. It's not a sense that you have to always hit these marks or else you're like out of the program. It's okay to miss sometimes, but you have to understand why you missed. And so again, it's a very forgiving program, but the goal is that you understand how to actually create meaningful KPIs for yourself and your team.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Anything else? What else did you learn? Like what did you know after the program that you didn't know before?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a ton about fundraising. I'm not gonna lie, that was our biggest, that was the goal we had going into the program, to really kind of come out of it a little bit more knowledgeable on the fundraising front. A lot of tools and tips and tricks for creating more or less that FOMO. These are very fundraising specific things, but creating that FOMO and driving interest in kind of your deal were things that we had not really, how do I put this? We hadn't really pursued when we did our first couple fundraising attempts. We were very green behind the ears in terms of fundraising. And so being able to really kind of get a lot of that knowledge from a lot of the Techstars experience distilled from people like David Cohen and Brad Feld, all that knowledge getting distilled into some really actionable chunks was very instrumental for us being able to close this deal. On top of that, having the Techstars brand, I think, really propelled us forward. It's something that I always joke about when I talk to people. I didn't think it was going to be that influential, but with anything, having kind of a brand appeal and having that Techstars brand, which is again very established and very well vetted, I think that's the reason we were able to kind of it propelled us and opened doors for us. Really helped us.
Yeah. I mean, I swear somewhere between a third and a half of the companies that come to Techstars come after they have failed to fundraise. And not because they're not capable founders or entrepreneurs, but because
it's hard.
You don't realize that actually fundraising is a muscle that you have to develop, just like every other skill that you require to get a company off the ground, whether it's go to market or technology or building product. Like fundraising is a skill that has to be developed. And whether you do it in Techstars, where I think we have a really good program to try to teach our founders all of the kind of the nuts and bolts of how to do it right and to give you a lot of practice, or you figure it out on your own, like you have to do the reps. Otherwise, you're going to go out and you're going to fail. And the other thing that, of course, you get is the social capital and the network that comes from Techstars. So, there's a ton of outreach on behalf of our founders, and there's this big, as you alluded to, there's a big stamp of credibility. Like already, hey, if you're in Techstars, okay, we know you're legit. We know you have a degree. You're bona fide, and that right there makes you interesting to a whole lot of people. By the way, one of the interesting things about going remote last time is that I know you and Kwame wanted that like on the stage physical demo day, but I'm telling you that by doing
No, it helped.
the video calling card thing, you got way more exposure
Traction,
to more firms than you probably would have under a traditional demo day. And I bet we'll never go back to like the physical in-person demo day.
God, I hope. Well, I mean, I hope there's a component of that, but I do really love the recorded videos because of the fact that you can really distribute it to a worldwide audience. Like we got a lot more traction because of that fact. And so I wouldn't say I was pushing for that. I wanted the free food. That was really what I was pushing for, but you guys got me.
we will still have an in-person party as soon as we are able to get back together again. Because that's what I want. I just want a celebration at the end of the program to to celebrate the accomplishments of getting through it. It's a really intense, challenging thing to do. So
speaking of challenges, I want to ask you this one because I think this is really pivotal. I mean, kind of this year we saw something that happens in Techstars. I don't know if it's a rare occurrence or a more common occurrence, but we saw some companies pivot. And I would love for you to talk about that aspect of pivoting during the program and the common challenges you see founders face.
Yeah. So I think pivoting is just a very kind of, it's endemic to companies at this stage. And probably, I don't know, a third to a half of early stage companies wind up pivoting a little or a lot, and maybe multiple times throughout the course of their journeys. It is a absolutely gut-wrenching experience, not just for you, but for me as an MD when you're in the program and you come up and you say, I think we're going to pivot. I'm like, oh, great, okay. Let's talk about that pivot. It's hard. But the bottom line is, it happens all the time. And when you actually look at some of the most successful companies that have come out of Techstars, like bona fide unicorns like Remitly and Outreach, they both pivoted. Outreach pivoted like years after they graduated, and now they're they've raised $1 billion. They're $1 billion plus valuation. So it's just part of the process. What we hope to do is, first of all, minimize the severity of the pivot, like doing a ground zero, start from nothing pivot, which happens, is really hard. But if you can, what we try to do is really teach one habit well, which is customer discovery and customer development. And before you start racing off to build something, spend a lot of time with your customers trying to figure out what their pain points are, so that at least you're, directionally, within 10 or 15 degrees of the compass needle. So that when you do pivot, it's not this, but it's this. If you are customer obsessed and you make that where you spend most of your time, first starting with questions and surveys, and then showing mock-ups and MVPs, and iterating as you go, you're less likely to have this gut-wrenching pivot. When you do have to pivot, well, again, make sure that the customer sits at the center of the process, so that you are not just kind of running around like crazy. And, some companies do it really methodically, and I think they are, they're more calm about their pivot, and other people run around like crazy, and hopefully they find their thing. But look, Techstars is very accommodating. We know that pivots are going to happen. Sometimes we even will take companies in expecting that they're going to pivot, or knowing that there's a high probability. And then we mainly want to equip you with the tools to be able to do it. This also ties back to the resiliency point, though. If you are not a resilient founder or group of founders, your odds of making it through that gut-wrenching experience of pivoting are lower. So anyway.
Certainly, no, thanks for thinking about that. Speaking on that, because that is a component of accelerators most people do not know occurs, or have any understanding of what happens when that does occur. So it was our first time kind of viewing it, and I was excited to kind of see how the results turned, and I think they turned out really well. I think the pivots were actually really successful.
Yeah. I think everybody who pivoted in your class has kind of found their footing. Exactly. Yeah. Not everybody does, by the way, but you all did great. So. Okay, let's see. What do I want to ask you? What do you wish you'd known going into the program that you know now? Like, what would be your, maybe more generally, what would be your advice to people who are applying, and if they happen to get in, what do you recommend that they do to make the most of the program?
Get a lot of sleep now. because it's the first one. Just hibernate for the first 2 weeks before. No, I mean, all jokes aside, I think one of the biggest things that I find value in and still do to this day is the Techstars network. In the middle or the beginning of the program, the first month is called kind of Mentor Madness. Not the first month, but the first month is administrative stuff, and that includes Mentor Madness, which is essentially I want to say a 2-week period of just tons of meetings with people in the Techstars mentors, people in the community who have really signed up to provide value to the startups and provide their expertise and knowledge. And during the program, obviously you are you have a lack of sleep, you're tired, you're exhausted, and you're being asked to more or less network with a ton of people on a regular basis. And so I wish, for me, I definitely took it somewhat seriously enough to be able to make strong connections, but I wish I had done a little bit more to build really strong foundations with all the mentors that came by. It's a very tough thing to do, but I also have a personality that I love to connect with people. And so I wish I had taken more advantage of that, because we met some really amazing, talented experts in their industries, everything from marketing to sales to go-to-market to engineering, that I've been able to tap into this day. I've been building some past, outside of Techstars, outside of the program, building some mentorship opportunities with some of the mentors we met during the program, who I made some really good connections with. But I just wish I would have taken more agency in that time to really go out of my way and make stronger connections with some of the other mentors we came across. And I still have the opportunity to do that to this day, but I think my advice to others would be, during Mentor Madness, don't see it as kind of just if your mindset is that it's a time sink, which was kind of partly my mindset during the time, you're going to miss out on the opportunities to really create meaningful relationships. I think it's something that's somewhat resonated across different past alumni. And so I heard about it after we had Mentor Madness, and I was like, dang it, yeah, I should have probably done that more. So that would be my feedback.
Yeah. One thing we're going to try to do in the upcoming class is actually create more, even before the program starts, sort of connectivity and fabric between the alums and the incoming class. Maybe even have a buddy program. There are definitely some things like Mentor Madness where they are grueling, they're exhausting, and you start to question, like, why am I doing this? And my general advice is, hey, submit to the process, and it'll work out, because we've been doing this now for 11 years, and we generally know it works. And like all networking related things, the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. And it's, you're not often going to. Yes, it is absolutely a big overhead and a burden to take a big chunk of 2 weeks out of your busy lives to meet with mentors. But if you do the work, you do the homework, you get prepared for those conversations, your odds of getting paired up with 3 to 5 really strong lead mentors goes way, way up. And it's also just a chance to pluck a ton of wisdom and experience out from these really experienced industry experts or functional experts or serial founders. So, and there are other things in the program that are like that, where you say, okay, do I really need to do this? This feels like a lot. And yet once you do it, you go, okay, yeah, I get a lot out of it. So anyway, cool. What do you want to do? You want to do a couple more questions, or?
Yeah, I was going to say, let me do one more, because I have one up top of mind, and then I think we should see. I posted in the chat. If anyone has any questions, feel free to post. We'll get to them, and if not, we'll just continue chatting with each other. But the question I have for you is more around leadership. What's your philosophy on developing leadership skills and helping founders do that? Because I know you are big on really kind of molding effective leaders through the Techstars program.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. One of the things that we do spend a lot of time on just the general notion of how do you become a really strong entrepreneurial leader. And it's sort of the softest thing that we teach from a skill perspective, right? Like it's not like go to market or fundraising, where there are these very concrete skills that you build up. Like leadership is something that takes a long time to develop, and it's even kind of hard to define in a lot of cases, right? But nonetheless, I have a personal, very strong philosophy. As you heard me say a million times during the program, it always comes back to the people. Okay. Yep. There are a lot of factors that contribute to a startup success or lack of success, but I still think that the vast majority of time it boils down to the people. And one thing I know is that a really great team will extract the most out of any given opportunity. And so we spend a lot of time during program talking about, you know, how to be a good leader and how to form the leadership and organizational DNA in this early stage that'll get you through all the things that are to come. And while I certainly have a personal leadership style and philosophy that works for me, which has been really kind of a servant leadership approach, it's not the only way to go. What's important to me is that early on the founding team sets up their values really clearly, and they have a lot of discussion about here. What are the things that really matter to us as a founding team? What's our organizational DNA? What behaviors do we want to see? What kind of communication patterns do we want to encourage? And let's get that set as early as we can. Now, it doesn't mean it can't change, but I generally feel like the sooner you have that laid out, the more likely you are to, you know, have a cohesive organization that works in concert to really succeed. And it helps figure out what kind of people you want to hire and what kind of people you don't want to hire. It helps to set, like, what kind of communication patterns are we going to encourage and what are we going to discourage, and how are we going to, you know, like, the thing about being a leader is sooner or later, for the most part, in my experience, you're going to have to rely on the people below you to also be leaders, and you can't be there all the time. So, you know, you want there to be a blueprint that says, well, if Claudius is in the room, I should still be able to make the right decision 80% of the time, because I know what our values are and I know what the sort of what the rules of engagement are. So anyway, but I can talk for hours about leadership. So
I was going to say, I think that's a very good philosophy, and piggybacking, I think one of the common I want to say common tropes in Amazon's leadership is do right by the customer, even when leadership's not there. When you're making a decision, if you know what to focus on, you know what to optimize for, then you're making the right choice. And then having that mission of doing right by the customer is a strong motivating factor to get employees and leaders under you to be able to align to the old company goal. So yeah, I think it's a great approach.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I think, again, like, I think there are very few right answers around this kind of stuff. What's more important is that there's sort of consistency and there's an intent around it. Okay. By the way, like saying, hey, look, you know, I'm a big customer first kind of person, but by the way, there are trade-offs to that. If you say that you're customer first, you may not treat your employees as well. Some people are employee first, and that works really well for other companies. But the main thing is your intent. You have intent and thought about it, and it's laid out, and there's agreement about it. So anyway, all right.
You got more for me?
What's next? What does the rest of 2021 hold for you all?
I was gonna say for New. Well, I was hoping New would exit nicely to Airbnb and we would be billionaires by now. So that's what's
too early, man. You got too early. You have a lot of
investors. We've got investors lined up. It's happening in 2021. It's bound to happen. Everybody's going to IPO and they'll have a lot of money. No, yeah. So realistically, what's next is we're opening up a new geo. As I mentioned, we kind of just got that seed round raised, and now we're looking at expanding the business to prove out the model and be able to raise subsequent capital to be able to roll out a nationwide expansion. So we're opening up a new geo. My co-founder Kwame actually just got back from Phoenix, which is our next location, and so we kind of broke ground on that new location, so to speak, and so we're making progress there and being able to expand and open up the new location, all puns intended, for 2021. Yeah. Hopefully a lot of profits as well.
Super excited. By the way, I think you owe Q and me some new swag. Like, the deal is once you have to send us t-shirts or something. So
we also have masks. We have branded. I mean, we have.
I want some masks.
We can send you guys that. We have a ton of branded stuff.
Excellent.
Luckily, we are a company that has supplies and equipment, and so we have on hand a lot of stuff for you. T-shirts, we got you. We got you covered. We'll get you.
All right.
Send us some sizes.
Okay, we will. All right, should we take some questions from the audience in the chat?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if there's any. I say, I think Craig asked, will this be recorded and made available afterwards? And I believe that is true. I don't think we have any immediate questions. I haven't seen any. I'm excited to see all the people that are from different locations. I guess talk about, you mentioned that, again, the cohort being remote this year, you guys are location agnostic. How are you going about sourcing for startups that could be anywhere? How has that process been for you, and how challenging has that been? Because I feel like it's got to be even more challenging.
Yeah, great, good question. And maybe if I can take a couple of minutes to just talk about what we look for in companies, because I would guess that a few people on the chat are thinking about applying. So with regard to sourcing, we're doing all the stuff we did last year, and then we're doing a ton of direct, diverse outreach, as I talked about earlier. We are getting tons of inbound interest in companies. We are probably winding up being more geographically diverse than we would have normally been, just because historically speaking, most of the companies here come from the Pacific Northwest, although there's no requirement that it is. Last time Chanel came from Philadelphia, so
really?
there's never a hard geographic restriction. It's just in a normal year where we're meeting in person, you do need to be in the program in Startup Hall. And this year, because it's remote, we're taking people from anywhere in the Americas. But it's also worth pointing out, look, we look for companies, our rough rubric for picking companies is we care about team, market opportunity, traction, and idea. And so again, we probably spend 70% of our time thinking about, is this a really great team? Okay, and then we ask, okay, are they going after a big opportunity? So we want companies that have the potential to be venture scale businesses and grow really big. And then the more traction you have, the easier it is to figure out if you figured something out. And then idea matters a little bit, but again, because people often wind up pivoting, like your precise business model or how you're going to market maybe matters a little bit less. But on team, we're looking for teams that are brilliant, that are resilient, that have good team dynamics. We really care a lot about teams that have some degree of founder market fit. So we really like it when a team shows up and they really know a lot about the problem they're trying to solve, and they have this unique insight to how they're trying to solve it. Okay, that really helps a lot in terms of the application. We talked a bit about those cultural values that we care about: humility and a give first attitude. It is important. We will take solo founders, by the way, but it's really important that you have the capacity to build and do rapid product iterations. Okay, whether that's a co-founder or an engineering lead, could be a contract developer, but I would ask whether or not you can really iterate that fast. And this is not just for our benefit, but it's really for your benefit. Like if you can't, if you think back to the program, Claudius, like if you couldn't do rapid product iterations, I suspect you would find it to be very frustrating. You just feel like you were drowning, right?
There's a whole month of just that.
Yeah, and so if you don't have that capacity, that's okay. Like you have to go through phases in startups, but you might just say, hey, I'm going to wait till the next cycle to apply so that I make the most out of the program and I get the most out of it. And it'll take you a while before you're past being relevant for Techstars, right? I mean, you've got a long ways to go. You have plenty of time to get into Techstars. So do it when you have the pieces lined up. And that, by the way, that's a conversation that I will have and Q will have very, very openly with you about whether or not you have the ingredients in place. Like we want you to come in and succeed. It does us no good if you show up and have a miserable time. So
certainly. And thanks for the overview. And asks, when you say team, do you consider beyond the founders? I think she's asking, do you guys beyond talk about the team surrounding the founders who was able to come into the program?
Yeah, so you're welcome to bring more than just the founders into the program and have them participate. A handful of companies did that. We definitely spend the most time on the founders, for sure. But again, you might be a solo founder with a strong supporting cast, and we would like to hear about it. So when I say like team dynamics, what I want to know is, do you have the right DNA to make it through the tough stuff together? Do you have good communication habits? Ideally, you've worked together for a while, so you can show, yeah, we've been through some tough stuff and come out the other end. But we'll certainly if you're a solo founder, we'll look at the team, and maybe a little less so if you're a group of co-founders coming in. But hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think it does it greatly. I know there was a question for me.
Yeah.
Maluka had asked, how long did New take to get product market fit? So the answer there is, I want to say roughly about a year. New had gone through some iterations before we landed on our business model, which is a services-based business model. Initially started out as a cleaning company for vacation rentals, but quickly learned that employing cleaners as employees doesn't scale very well. If you think about it, no one goes into life thinking they want to be just a cleaner as a career. So there's not a lot of progression there, and there's a lot of churn. We eventually moved into the gig economy model of being able to work with some subcontracted cleaners. And that was around a year in, again, 2018. And the way we say we found product market fit was understanding that even with a crappy MVP of a product that really wasn't much to show, we're still able to facilitate the service, but we had customers coming back to us because they couldn't find anything better on the market. They couldn't find anything better, and they were willing to wait through New kind of figuring out its product to get the ultimate solution, because they knew that problem was such a huge pain point. So I think the best approach to kind of finding product market fit is really solve for a strong pain point, solve for something that people are not just people are really feeling strongly. Again, our customers, their goal is to get ultimately passive income. And so we provide that experience for them by being able to offload the most challenging component of owning a vacation rental, which is the cleaning and the cleaning and getting ready for the next guest. And so the answer there was about a year in.
Yeah. Hey, Claudius, can I ask you a follow-up question to that? So maybe you could
Certainly.
elaborate on how you know, or at least have a good sense that you've actually achieved product market fit, like what metrics or what behaviors, what do you see that makes you say, okay, hey, I think we might have product market fit, or I know, or I feel quite confident that we have it.
Yeah, again, the first one I think is your customers, one, pulling you, and two, willing to wait through the, I like to say, wade through the S word. I don't want to cuss on this recording here, but when you're a startup in early stage, there's going to be a lot of things that go wrong. When you have customers who aren't churning because of every little thing, and they're willing to wait with you because they understand that this problem, what you're solving, is so strong, and they haven't found anything else that solves it like you do, then you have something that you know you're onto something. Customers are still sticking with you, even though the solution is not where it should be and it's not working on a regular, consistent basis. That's a strong indicator. The other one I would say is there is a more, I guess, scientific method out there from the startup world, which I believe the co-founder of Superhuman, the email tool, had prescribed, which is more or less, if you survey your existing customers and more or less ask them, how would you feel if New wasn't around anymore, or New were to disappear, and your goal is to try to get at least 40% to say they would feel devastated that New wasn't around. Like, they really love the service that much that if New wasn't around, they wouldn't know what to do. So that's kind of a metric that you can use as well if you have existing customers. Now, it's hard if you don't, but if you don't, I think you can fall back to, will customers stick with you even though you're still kind of struggling through this process? That is a great indicator that you've kind of got something there.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I would love for your thoughts on this too. You're more the expert than me.
Yeah, no, you definitely took one of the answers, which is like, the how, how unhappy would your customers be if you went away? And then they're like more, they're more kind of conventional things, like you see recurring usage patterns, or your customers coming back to you, churn goes away. Sometimes things like, and net promoter scores, or people are just getting good reviews. Are you getting referrals? Are people telling their friends, oh, you need to go use New? Those are all examples of it. And, it's really, really helpful when it comes to when you raise capital, if you can point to the fact that customers love you, and they would be really unhappy if you went away, because it means that you've either solved their pain or you fulfilled their lust, if it's a, if it's more of a luxury kind of thing. But and I think you folks definitely have a large degree of product market fit, and that was one of the reasons why I took you into the program. Now, most companies at this stage don't have that, or don't have as clear evidence as I think you did. Anyway, there's a question here. Can you talk about the importance of passion to your startup? And what do you do when you have a great idea, but it's not something you're passionate about? Okay, that's a juicy question. I have a really strong opinion about this. And Claudius, you might want to weigh into. If you are not passionate, okay, so I should have said, another thing that we look for in our founding teams when we're screening is commitment, okay, which is another way of thinking about passion. I have a really strong personal feeling that if you are not totally passionate about your idea, you shouldn't do it, okay? As great an idea as it is, if you are not like all in, don't start a company, okay? And I'll use my own direct experience about it, which is that when I started my second company, which was this data center business in Iceland, I was losing sleep over it. I was so excited about it. I was in my gut, I'm like, this company needs to exist, and I need to be the one to do it. And if I don't do it, I'm going to spend the rest of my life wondering if I should have done it. Okay. That's how strongly I felt about it. And then conversely, after 10 years, when I left that company and was trying to figure out what my next thing to do was going to be, I certainly thought, well, maybe I should go start another company, but there was no idea that I had anywhere near that depth of feeling for. And so I said, well, this time around, I'm actually going to go work on somebody else's thing. I've got a lot of experience at this point. I can probably help them out. And that's what I did. But I think passion is critical. And, ideas are important, but they're only ideas. The value is in the actual doing it and the executing on the idea. There's so many people who have great ideas who never did it. But, if you don't have the passion to go out and actually do it and grind through it and make it a reality, it's just an idea. And if you don't feel strongly about it, then you shouldn't do it, because startups are tough. And you don't get paid very much. You go through way more, I think, emotional trauma for lack, and kind of volatility than you do working for a big company, because you're always worried about whether or not your company is going to make it. And you should only do it if you're all in. That's what I think. I don't know, Claudius, if you'd say the same thing.
Yeah, very similar things. I think that the conversation around passion for me is a little bit more nuanced. The way I like to think about it is, are you willing to give years of your life to this? And are you willing to lose out on a bunch of other opportunities, whether it's money or time, on this thing? Which, again, by answering that question, if your answer to it is yes, if you're willing to give at least 4 or 5 years of your life to this pursuit, knowing that the payout may not come, I think that, if you answer yes to that, I think that indicates some level of passion to the idea, or something else. Now, you got to, again, ask yourself whether or not that is something you're willing to give up. But I feel like a lot of people opt or focus too much on the passion component, but you need to really be honest with yourself, and to know that this commitment is not going to be a short-term thing. And you can try an idea, maybe it doesn't work out in a year or two. Your goal, especially if you're not passionate about the idea, is to try to see if it'll fail as soon as possible. If you're going to try it, just try to see how quickly you can fail at this idea. Obviously, with pursuing it in a way that you're going to have some good outcome, but the sooner you can get to a failure, the sooner you can move on with your life, because again, startups do take years, if not decades, of your life. And so you have to be ready to kind of put that work in, the time in.
Yeah, actually, what you said prompts me to think, another way to think about it is this. So, look, of course, I think most people who do startups have the hope that it turns out into a financially great outcome. So, for me though, my second company, this data center business that I spent 10 years on, has been, at least thus far, the least lucrative thing for me. Okay. So I sold my first and my third companies, but my most cherished experience by far, and the one that I have like the most kind of love for, was this data center business. It was my baby. And the experience that I had building that company up, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And so even though that's been the least remunerative, maybe someday it'll turn up, maybe we'll sell it for a bunch at some point, I'll make some money from it. But I have no regrets about doing that, because I enjoyed pretty much every step of the way, and it was such an amazing experience. And I learned a ton, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But you know, has it been a great financial outcome yet? No, not yet.
Yeah,
And maybe
so I was gonna say that's the reason I say passion is a little bit nuanced, because you can find passion in anything that you do. Like for me, I'm passionate about the technology component of our business, scaling it and growing it. The cleaning component, which me and Kwame have had to do, it's a little less passion because it's not really my forte, but I'm able to get to that part because I have a passion for the technology component of this business. But I do love what we're building overall on the grand scale, and I have a passion for, one, startups and entrepreneurship, and so I have a passion all around for those components. But if you ask me, are you passionate about cleaning? I'm gonna say I'm kind of so-so. But I am willing to give years of my life to this endeavor because I think that there's a really good outcome at the end, given that we have a good opportunity that we're tackling, and we've been able to really find a good niche and grow our business in a sense. So that's why I say passion is a little bit nuanced, because it's not about one thing.
That's a great point. I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I think data centers are boring as hell, but but I was really passionate about. I love my teammates. Yeah. I love my responsibility in that business. I happen to love Iceland and the international global business aspects of it. Data centers, I liked enough to know what I needed to know. Whereas my co-founder, our CTO, like lived and breathed data centers. He got super excited about it. So yeah, passion can come in many forms.
I think more for you on the chat.
Yeah. So I think we're getting, okay, so question for Isaac. Maybe you can speak from previous success and the entrepreneurial journey, but does success erode passion? How do you keep the fire ignited? Wow, getting existential here, man. Does success erode passion? I think it depends on who you are. I'm gonna duck that question a little bit. I'll tell you, age erodes passion. I mean, look,
and responsibilities.
Yeah, I mean, the older
that limits what you can do.
The older you get, the easier you get, the quickly you get tired. And I do think, look, doing a startup requires a lot of energy. Like, if you told me right now I have to work 80-hour weeks for the next 2 years, I probably would opt out unless I don't know, take something. I mean, I would do it if I had to, but I don't know. I mean, again, as Claudius said, passion comes from in a lot of different ways. I'm very passionate about what I do at Techstars and about the people I get to work with. I love it. I really, really enjoy working with our founders. But I'm also not working weeks again. So
can I take a quick stab at that too?
Yeah, please.
This is from someone who hasn't had any success, so take it with a grain of salt. But I think the entrepreneurial journey, again, you're expecting at least to give 5 to 10 years of your life. You only have so many decades to be able to do that. So the older you get, the less amount of times you can do that. I think people in life really get generally 2 or 3 at bats. So that's like, again, 30 to 40 years of your life. So of course it's going to get eroded as you go on, but I think it's not that it gets eroded. It's just like you have a finite number of at bats you can take with this type of career path, in a sense.
Yeah,
because it's so long.
Yeah, and look, I think a lot of times it's easy to say, oh yeah, just go be an entrepreneur. It's great. You're gonna love it. And I don't think that's always true. This is why I talk about this passion and this commitment thing. Like, you got to really feel it in your gut. And if you don't, then don't do it yet. And look, people, it is financially tough. Okay, you are definitely taking a risk. And I do know 50-year-old entrepreneurs who never hit it, and they don't have any, they don't have much money saved, and if they have families, it's going to be tougher. It means that you're not going to be able to do as many good things for your kids. So you do have to think through the financial calculus. So it's not an easy decision. It's really, really not. I mean, I think people who, and by the way, some people have the ability to do it. They go for it. And they just realize, like, I don't like the lack of structure of being an entrepreneur. I mean, I see a lot of people, by the way, who do big companies for 10 or 20 years, and they think, oh, this being startups is going to be great. And they show up and it sucks for them because they got used to having the kind of the structure and sort of the direction that working in a bigger company gives you. And they realize, I really don't like knowing not knowing exactly what to do. I maybe like the freedom and the autonomy, but I don't like the uncertainty. So there, it's a really complicated game. And if you're not sure about it, talk to a lot of people, and then, maybe say, hey, I'm going to do it when I've got so much money saved, or I'm going to do it for this amount of time. And if I don't get to a certain place, then I'm going to go back to a steadier job. It's not a simple question.
Yeah, I think that is a really good segue to our kind of closing question here. And I have a reason for asking that, but Isaac, I'll ask you first.
Okay.
Do you have any resources you recommend aspiring founders read, kind of consume, things that you can leave them with so that they can follow up on this conversation?
Wow. Okay. Well, sure. Yes. I don't even know where to start. The Lean Startup, if you haven't read it, is a pretty it's one of the startup Bibles of the current age. Most companies will find some relevancy in that, and it's certainly the way that we sort of tend to direct things or steer things at Techstars, because it works for most companies. Not every company, by the way. If you've never read Good to Great, I really like that book. I think there's just some foundational truths there. From a leadership standpoint, I really like the stuff that Lencioni does, starting with the 5 dysfunctions of a team. That is kind of a very servant leadership oriented approach to leadership, and I really like that. I think it just, again, I think the thing I think about most business books is they're basically common sense. It's just that the really good authors tend to distill them down to their essence, and you read that and you're like, yeah, of course that's true. I knew that, but wow, it's a lot clearer now than it was before I read the book. So
I call it the phenomenon of knowing something versus internalizing something. There's tons of times where we know things until we hear it in a certain light that we're like, oh yeah, that makes a lot more, like that really hits home. Internalization is huge.
Yeah. How about you? What have you consumed recently, or that are just kind of one of the things that are foundational for you?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I only have one that I really want to share, and it goes on to that topic that we discussed of understanding the risks that you are taking starting a startup. So there's a book called Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke, who is a former world championship poker player, and she talks about really making better decisions when you don't have all the information, and understanding that everything you do in life is a bet. It's a bet on something, an outcome. And a lot of people go through life making these decisions, which are bets, very implicitly, not really explicitly stating the percentage of which they're confident this thing is going to pay off. And so I think in that discussion, I would really recommend everyone read this book, because it will help you be much more methodical in deciding for yourself and the certain level of confidence that you think a idea or a startup journey is going to have a good outcome for you. So that's my book of the evening. I would highly recommend it. I recently read it 2 days ago.
Say the title again. I'll put it in the
I put it in the chat.
You did, okay.
It's called Thinking in Bets.
Oh, by Annie Duke. Okay,
Yeah. Great book. Highly recommend it.
All right.
Okay, I think that's it for us. We're definitely over time, but this is a great conversation, Isaac. Always good to catch up on.
I really appreciate you pulling some time out of your busy afternoon, and thanks to everybody for joining us and hearing our story. We're easily reachable. Claudius, can you put your
I'll put my email there.
And we're very approachable and easy to reach, and we're always happy to chat. So, and thank you very much to StartOut community for hosting us and letting us talk about Techstars and our respective experiences.
You want to plug the app one more time? I think
yes.
The link
thank
there.
you. Yes. Thank you. You're doing my job for me. We are taking applications for the Techstars Seattle class of 2021. Applications close October 11th. If you are interested, I highly recommend taking office hours with us, and we'd love to meet you. It's a really, I think most founders benefit tremendously from it, and we hope you'll apply.
Thanks, Alex, for calling out my messages. Only going to all panelists. I apologize. Hopefully everyone got my messages now. Got my email there. Feel free to reach out. Happy to connect. And there's that book again, Thinking in Bets. Highly recommend it.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Claudius. That was super fun.
Yeah.